True Story Media.
Life wasn't bad, but I just wasn't happy. I had become a very passive participant in my life and just kind of let everything happen to me.
The universe never lets us stay passive for long.
It was just one of those things where it was like everything just kind of came to a head. And as someone who tends to be more type A, some say I have issues with control. I like control.
I'm Brittany Yard. You probably think this story is about you. But this story is Gina's.
At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Clorox Sentiva smells like lavender. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
All right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Sentiva. Now available in Clorox Sentiva Lavender Scented Bleach. Use as directed.
When I first met Gina, everything she was doing seemed calm and intentional and with confidence. But as I got to know her more, I realized that she was at a big crossroads in her life.
I'm in this weird space within about a month where I just sold my house, I just split from my ex, and I don't have a job. This is the universe telling me that it is time for change.
These changes would alter her next steps in life, ultimately leading her back to a relationship that had her flee the state of Colorado 20 years before. I only know this whole story because in 2023, her dog attacked mine in our apartment hallway. Don't worry, all dogs and humans were okay.
My name is Gina. I am 42, live in Seattle, born and raised in Germany. In July, I moved into the apartment. In August, you moved in. Went from house living with 3 dogs to apartment living with 3 dogs. And one of my pups in particular was really struggling.
One of Gina's dogs got out of his harness and attacked my dog. I froze. Gina literally leaped into action. At one point, Gina said to me, "Run." And that's when I snapped out of it and ran down the hallway. After that very dramatic meet cute, Gina and I exchanged numbers and started texting each other when we were taking our dogs out for a walk to make sure that there wasn't another unexpected encounter. I knew after I saw Gina wrestling that dog that she was somebody that I wanted to be friends with. And as we were texting, we started talking about more and more things. And we quickly realized that we were both going through a whole lot of shit.
You and I connecting was 2 souls finding each other. We're like, we have commonalities that just kind of, we pull to each other. I mean, I feel like I won the victim lottery. I was like, my dog just attacked her dog and I'm hanging out with her. Yeah. Like, what?
It wasn't until much later that I learned that she was in this yes era of her life where she just said yes.
When I started saying yes, I didn't give a shit about anybody else but me. And that was the first time in a long time for me. It's ingrained in me to say no. I'm a very cautious person. Me before was, honestly, if I look back now, it's really hard for me to think about it because I was so different. If you ask my niece, she's like, for a while, I really thought you were just grumpy all the time. You're always annoyed. She's like, every time I saw you, you seemed like something was bugging you. Life wasn't bad, but I just wasn't happy.
Gina had been aching for a different life long before circumstances finally aligned to make that possible for her. Change rarely comes unprompted, and she had been quietly preparing herself for that moment. The first change seemed almost insignificant.
We've been talking about selling this house for like the past 5 years of having the house. So let's do it. So we went ahead and started going down the path of selling the house. And then a week into moving, we broke up. Then the months leading up, it was more obvious that was going to happen. Married for 5 years, dating for 5, so together 10 total. But it wasn't bad, it just wasn't good. We kind of just became roommates like many others. I wasn't angry or miserable every day of my life. I was like, I guess this is going to be my life for the rest of my life.
I've been divorced twice, and I know how complicated it is to keep fighting for a relationship that isn't bringing you joy. And eventually you realize that something has to change.
We're both very loyal people, and so we were both so committed to being committed to each other. We weren't committed to the connection. We weren't honoring the connection through most of our relationship. When I think back, I'm like, it was a 10-year relationship that probably should have lasted 2 years.
And then Gina got laid off from her career of 20 years.
Because I'd been for years talking about leaving that company. I was not happy. For the first time in my life, and my adult life at least, there was no way for me to even try to have control. And so I just kind of let it go. This is the universe telling me that it is time for change.
After this whirlwind month, she knew she could no longer remain passive in her life.
I also was lucky enough to be in a situation where I was financially stable. And so I was like, I'm not going to go to work right away and just find something else that's the same thing to just keep doing. I'm not going to jump into another relationship with another person that I'm, just to be in a relationship. I want to be happy. I want to be happy. And so, part of the control thing and being a rule follower, I'm a big no person. I know that, people aren't excited to hear that, but I say no to a lot of things, or I have.
It's so funny because I don't know you as a no person. Everything I know about you is like, fuck yeah, let's go do that. And you don't know me as like Betty Crocker mom.
No.
Like,
not that there's anything wrong with that, but no, it's not the Brit that I met. Yeah.
Right. It's really insane to me how we met at these times in our life.
You were another piece of the universe being like, this is a person who's going to help you on your journey. And honestly, for that next year and a half, year and a quarter, I don't think I would be where I am today if it wasn't for that.
Her next big yes was taking a solo trip to Bali.
Did things that I would never do as a no person. Because I'm very clumsy, naturally hand-eye coordination, not the best. I will trip, I will walking, I will fall. So, surfing, no. But in Bali, it was a yes. I wasn't good at it, but I loved every second. And I was able to stay up twice. I hiked a volcano at a sunrise, before sunrise, in the pitch black. There's probably no time in my adult life where I'm going to get an opportunity to just live, but until retirement. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to live.
I only knew her as someone that was fearless, and it took me a long time to realize how remarkable her efforts to change her path had been. She used the time during that trip to really dig into who she was and what she wanted.
Growing up, I had a lot of shame when it came to sex, sexuality, sensuality. It was always something that, you as a woman, as a girl or a woman, if I'm being honest, you're not supposed to want it. When I go back and think about my sexual history, all through high school, dated boys. As soon as I graduated, started dating women. Only dated women for about 7 years straight. And then I moved from Colorado to Seattle and had no luck. And I say I had no game because I don't see it as a game, but I am not smooth. And I could not, no women were interested in me at all. Now, most of my friends were gay men, so we often hung out at gay clubs where there was a lot of other men. I was not having the luck with women, so I started dating men occasionally again. And dated a bit here and there, but I definitely was the person who very regularly, if I was dating someone and they liked me and they wanted to be in a relationship, I was like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing now. I was very accommodating in previous relationships. Eventually, over the years, I ended up meeting my ex-husband, and things were very easy with him. And he very quickly was like, you're it. I want to do this. And I was like, okay, so I guess we're doing this. And then in the relationship, intimacy was not a strength for either. Like it got very awkward very quick.
Gina wasn't just being passive in her life. She was avoiding listening to those voices deep inside.
Towards the end, we weren't intimate, barely ever. It was something that for many years I was willing to accept. I was like, okay, if this is the only, like, it's not the only, but if this was the thing that's like not great, I could do this. I could do this for the rest of my life. I know how to masturbate. I can do this.
That was Gina then, but this is Gina in the driver's seat.
I want to have sex. I want to have sex. I don't want a boyfriend. I don't want a girlfriend. I just want to have sex. Relationship-wise, I didn't want to be in one. I was pretty adamant. I was in a space where I had just gotten out of a 10-year relationship. Again, it wasn't a bad relationship, but neither of us were fulfilled. I was like, I want to date. And I want to date a lot.
Like me, Gina had been out of the dating world for at least 10 years.
I think there was plenty of fish. Like there were websites. Websites were big.
Websites, yeah.
Websites were big when I was dating, not apps. So apps was a whole new world.
I helped her set up her profile, showed her how to do a background check. We set her up with a Google Voice number and started sharing our locations. After my tumultuous dating experience on the apps, I wanted to make sure that Gina got the experience she wanted safely.
And you were like, oh, no. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to set you up to where you're not going to die.
And decided that Tinder was the best choice.
Yes.
Because if what you want is sex, like that's where you go. We learned very quickly that we have similar tastes in men. And so we would routinely match with the same guys.
Yeah.
And then it's like we started screenshotting our matches.
We had to.
Yeah.
Because we're like, hold on, are you getting him? Are you taking him home? Or
Are you talking to him?
Where are we at?
There were a couple that we were like, we both could, and then both bring him to the same floor on different days and see if he notices.
Yeah. It was an interesting experience. I don't want to call it a roster.
But yours was impressive.
I'm also an introvert, which makes, peopling not always the easiest for me.
In order to get into that zone, Gina had a recipe.
3 shots of tequila, power pose. I had a playlist I would have playing on my TV. It was like all like 90s, 2000s R&B. I was like, I got to get in the zone in order to like find my sexy. And it was really hard at first because the idea of just sleeping with someone just seemed so foreign to me.
I want to take a minute and talk about hormone harmony. It isn't just for menopause, even though I was thrown into that last year. Finding a product that helps regulate my symptoms has been so crucial. Whether it's hot flashes, night sweats, or those racing thoughts and low moods, I've been able to use Hormone Harmony to help me feel like myself again. This isn't just a product for somebody that's going through menopause. It can help you at any stage in your life to help maintain optimal hormone levels. I also love Happy Mammoth's Complete Gut Repair. With the complete gut repair, when I'm traveling, I can make sure that I continue to feel like myself, even with the time zone changes and dysregulation to my sleep. For a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com using the code YouProbably at checkout. That's happymammoth.com with the code YouProbably.
You've maxed out your 401k, you're contributing to an IRA, and making some other investments. You're ahead of the game and doing well. But where do you go from here? The same old story can only get you so far. If you want a new take from a new type of financial professional, we invite you to get a fresh perspective beside an agent with the backing of New York Life. Insurance, investments, retirement, and more. Visit NYL.com to learn more. Investments are offered through registered representatives of NyLife Securities, LLC, member FINRA SIPC, a New York Life company.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
Gina and I had very similar experiences after our marriages ended. We intentionally went into the next steps of our life knowing that we wanted to make that experience ours, and we were unwilling to sacrifice who we were to placate our partners.
Being in my 40s and newly single and deciding to change up the game for myself a bit and just go into these interactions with sex in my, like, that is it. I don't want to be your girlfriend. I don't want to necessarily know about your life. That I don't, I've met some great guys and they shared, you naturally just have conversations. But I was like, I don't want to know about how your day is going. I don't care. I've done that for 10 years. Like, I want experiences that are going to help me understand what I'm into and what I'm not into, because it had been so long since I really felt sex as a freeing experience to where I was like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I like. I don't know if I want you to pull my hair. I might hit you. I don't know if I want to get choked. Maybe. A friend of mine, he was one of the first guys to pop in and say, hey, I'm willing to help out. Having him kind of kick things off for me, it helped build my confidence. It helped me start to figure out what I wanted. The sexual experiences with him were very nuanced. They were definitely more aggressive, more assertive. And so I kind of got to figure out what my boundaries are. What is too far? What is not? What do I like? I had another guy that I like to call coffee shop date. He was charismatic. He was fun. There was another guy that was my blanket. I called him Blanket. He was my snuggler. He was the guy that would come over. We'd watch Nicolas Cage movies, cuddle on the couch, and then hook up. And it worked out.
Women are now getting divorced without shame. And there's this whole army of women that are no longer tolerating a lack of understanding in their relationships. For Gina and I, getting married just seemed like the next step in that relationship we were in. But I look at the younger generation, my daughter and her friends, and they aren't taking that next step unless it serves them. Sometimes saying yes took Gina to places she never would have expected.
I have an older friend that I've known for years through work who had for so many years while I was married was like, hey, do you want to come to this club? Do you want to come to this club? And I was like, sounds like a great experience, but I was like, nah, I'm married. So when I was single, he's like, hey, do you want to check out the club? I went to this club experience. Now, I feel very naive when I look back because I'm like, I should have known this was a sex club. And I call it a sex club. It's actually a swingers club. But somehow I walked into this club thinking, I'm going to learn about BDSM tonight. I'm going to see women in lingerie. That was the extent. What ended up happening is I was introduced to a lot of naked people. There was definitely sex. There was sex going on. I was so confused, and I wasn't offended, but I just was not prepared. Full disclosure, I didn't even shave. I had no intentions of having sex. I had no clue what I was doing there. Honestly, I was the weird chick, because it was weird, who ate because they have free food. So I was sitting there with multiple plates of ravioli. I'm fully clothed, eating ravioli while people are banging in the rooms next to me. So that was my first experience. So I'm telling this other friend when we're at dinner, I'm like, oh my gosh, I went to a sex club and completely didn't realize it was a sex club.
I went to a sex club and ate ravioli.
Yes, and ate ravioli. The ravioli was good. And this other friend is on their journey, and they were like, hey, I've been interested. I would like to learn about this. If you're game, I would love to go again. And it was such a safe and inviting experience the first time around. Even for someone who wasn't doing anything, everybody was so friendly, so nice, happy to educate me, that I was like, let's do it. We ended up going, and because I knew what I was getting into, because it felt like it just felt comfortable. Now, mind you, I did have my normal shots, like I always do. I ended up having sex a few times, very publicly in the back rooms. And something that felt very scary, and why would I would never, the shame that would come with that, I would never. It was crazy how easy it became. It, the noises, the scenery, looking over and seeing someone give another person head and not even flinching and just continuing about your own business, it felt so freeing. It was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. Not necessarily something you're going to catch me doing on the weekends all the time, but I'm happy I did it. And I have no regrets, because in this journey of me getting okay with myself and my wants and my needs, I think it was a pivotal part in that. It showed me, again, it was like Bali. That was my surfing of Bali. It was sex club. I got a new groove, and it felt empowering. It felt good. I was no longer the shy, nervous, young, immature woman that I was in my 20s. And that's not to say that I don't still get shy or get nervous or am immature today, but not to the extent I was in my 20s. But I was no longer that same person. That was a completely different Gina.
Sometimes when we move forward, we can't help but look back.
When I first became single, you pop into the Rolodex. I'm like, who can I potentially look into that, might be from my past? Oh, haven't talked to you in a while. And very quickly, Patrick, my best friend, was like, you can talk to everyone and anyone from your past, but don't you dare reach out to Viv. Don't you dare. That shouldn't even be a thought. And so that was off limits. I might have checked out their profiles a bit more frequently once I became single, but I was not reaching out because that was just not something that was in my best judgment.
I was nervous.
Yes.
Because I had heard the stories.
The horror stories. It was super complicated. There were I love yous. It was just the iconic situationship, but in the early to mid 2000s. Very young, very lustful love. We had an amazing sex life, but neither of us were equipped to deal with all the baggage that we carried with us from our childhood. I spiraled for months, and it was to a point where I had a job opportunity to come out to Seattle. I took a look at my life, and I was like, every weekend I'm crying over this chick. If I don't go, I'm going to be stuck in my life. And so that was off limits. It was a hard pass. I left the state to get away from this person. So the idea of reconnecting seems completely crazy.
Not just crazy. None of us thought that she should reach out to Viv.
Yeah, and you and everyone else. But they kept popping up on my feed out of the blue, 2-3 times a week. And I was like, full disclosure, I was like, okay, they still look good. But I was like, you know, what's the harm in checking in? And though I was told I'm saying yes to things. I'm saying yes. So that's when I reached out.
I do want to call out though, okay? The message starts with, against my better judgment, I'm reaching out.
I was probably the better judgment. I was probably the one that was like, why are you doing that? Don't That's do that. Next time on You Probably Think This Story's About You. You can support the show by joining us on Apple Podcasts or Patreon. Episodes are available early and ad-free. Our executive producer is me, Brittany Ard. Our senior producer and editor is Sydney Gladue. Story consulting by Mariah Gossett. Sound engineering by Sean Simmons. Graphic design by Nigella Shama. Opening theme by Youth Star and Miscellaneous. You Probably Think This Story's About You is a production of BDE Unlimited Productions. You can follow me for updates at brittany.ard on all social media platforms. If you like what we're doing, don't forget to hit that follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast. Give us a rate and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I love responding to comments on Spotify. Trolling the trolls is my new favorite pastime.